breaking updates. Very important.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
Snow White, there's been an enormous amount of controversy surrounding Snow White, obviously. And now you better have a good reason to get people to the theaters, and this ain't it. The movie apparently is not very good. I haven't seen it yet. I would be shocked if it were. Again, the star, Rachel Zegler, is unbelievably charmless in public. Studios really need to go back to what they originally did, which was tell your stars to shut up and not say things, because no one is paying to hear your star say offensive things off the screen.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they are scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
Controversy has been dogging this movie since the very beginning. So much so that the Daily Wire, I think we played a major role in basically forcing Disney to go reshoot it. Well, it didn't help, apparently. Disney's Snow White was essentially a box office dud.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
Now, one became clear fast. Rachel Zegler wasn't exactly helping her own case.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney having to backtrack. She talks about how this isn't a fairy tale about falling in love with the prince. This is a fairy tale about fighting your own battle.
She's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
This is truly, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry.
There are a lot of reasons you have to suspend disbelief when you watch a movie like Snow White. There's magic, and there's talking forests and animals that act in human ways and such. But probably the biggest aspect of disbelief you have to suspend is the idea that Gal Gadot, as the wicked witch here, as the evil stepmother, is somehow less good looking than Rachel Zegler. Come on, gang. We ain't blind.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Gal Gadot, who plays the queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
I understand that we're supposed to pretend that disabilities no longer exist or something, but we're not all blind. We can still see. I don't know if that mirror was broken.
Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
Oh, man. Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
There's a reason why the public has shifted. If you can't avoid this movie, you absolutely should because it's absolute trash. I know some people like this movie. Some people are stupid. Oops!
Take one timeless fairy tale, add a lead who seems barely interested, and toss in a commentator who can smell disaster before opening weekend. That's the exact storm that hit when Rachel Zegler stepped into Disney's new Snow White. And voices like Ben Shapiro were already calling it a train wreck before the first trailer even dropped.
Then they decided to cast Rachel Zegler, who is Hispanic, as Snow White. Now, again, you can cast people however you want to cast people. I really don't care. However, Snow White, in which the description of the character is skin as white as snow, lips red as the rose, right? I mean, there's an actual physical description of the part. Not my fault it's written that way. It ain't racist to write it that way. That's the description of the part. That's what it is. The name of the movie is Snow White. Okay?
Especially when it came to Rachel Zegler, who took on the role of Snow White like it was a job she couldn't wait to be done with.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
The original Snow White charmed audiences with music and dwarfs. This version traded all that for chaos, a sky-high budget, and a wave of panic Disney executives definitely didn't see coming.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
This fairy tale makeover went from maybe this could work to a textbook example of how not to revive an 80-year-old classic. No dwarfs, no charm, just a lot of questionable choices. It all started when Disney decided to dust off its crown jewel, Snow White, the first full-length animated feature from the 1930s. Iconic, beloved, and risky to mess with. But Disney went for it anyway, casting Rachel Zegler fresh off her breakout in a big musical hit.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
At first, fans were willing to give Disney the benefit of the doubt. But once whispers started that the 7 dwarfs were being swapped out entirely, curiosity turned to disbelief, and the internet wasted no time sounding the alarm.
If you're enjoying the story so far, hit that like button so YouTube can show it to more people like you.
It showed that the dwarves were not, in fact, dwarves in Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, because that would be offensive apparently to little people, so instead, they just made the dwarves normal-sized humans, which was idiotic, because that's not the story. Then they decided they couldn't actually cast, little people in these roles, so they decided to cast big people and then shrink them down using CGI, so it looks terrible.
Sure, some thought it might just be a bold, creative choice. Maybe Disney had a vision, but that hope didn't last long, especially after Rachel Zegler openly called the original outdated. For someone playing a beloved princess, it wasn't a great look.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 17 years.
Rachel Zegler didn't hold back. She dismissed the original as a relic of the past, making it clear she saw the 1937 classic as something better left behind.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
The backlash was instant. Fans were stunned that the face of a Disney princess couldn't muster a drop of nostalgia for the original. It felt off, like someone trashing a classic while cashing in on it. But that wasn't the only red flag. The 7 dwarfs replaced, in their place, generic computer-generated creatures with no real connection to the story. No Doc, no Grumpy, just visual filler. And for longtime fans, that change hit hard.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why are we doing that?"
Now, fans took to social media fast. They weren't just upset, they were baffled. You don't remove the dwarfs from Snow White and expect silence. The title itself is the brand.
What do you think? Did removing the dwarfs ruin it for you, or was it something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading all of them.
But the real kicker? Disney sunk a staggering budget, some say over $200 million, into this. And where that money actually went only made things worse.
It cost $270 million to make. $270 million.
A budget that size should have guaranteed top-tier visuals, thoughtful promotion, and a cast that wouldn't trash the original. But instead, the money seemed to go everywhere except where it mattered. The trailers looked polished but empty, sweeping landscapes, no soul. The posters? Generic at best. Fans started realizing Disney wasn't trying to honor a classic, they were trying to reinvent it entirely. And when opening weekend came around, the numbers told the whole story.
Disney has botched this Snow White movie every way it's possible to botch the Snow White movie. So you'll recall that originally, the Snow White movie starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, you'll remember that film had a trailer so awful that Disney had to completely recut the movie.
The more epic Disney tried to make this remake look, the more skeptical the audience became. No dwarfs, cold lead, heavy CGI. It felt like they were covering cracks with glitter. Opening weekend was the moment of truth. Industry estimates hovered around $50 million. Already disappointing given the $270 million budget behind it. But Snow White couldn't even clear that low bar. The numbers were in, and the verdict was brutal. This wasn't just a letdown, it was a certified flop.
Early estimates suggested that they would take in 48 to 58 million in the first weekend. Apparently, it did 43 million in its first weekend. But this live-action remake is a giant fail. It is not doing well at the box office.
That means Snow White is destined to be one of the biggest bombs in Disney history. It will not recoup.
Word spread fast, headlines hit hard, calling Snow White 2025 a total miss. Analysts pointed to all the usual suspects, the missing dwarfs, the overload of CGI, and of course, Rachel Zegler's dismissive takes on the original.
Now you have Rachel Zegler thinking, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird, we're gonna change all that.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
That's when the fan base snapped. Rachel Zegler caught the full force of the fallout, and so did the film. When your lead actress mocks the story she's supposed to sell, you lose the room. Audiences called it a marketing disaster. Disney's pitch sounded more like, we remade a classic, stripped out the charm, and our star thinks the original is cringe. Now come see it. It was death by 1,000 bad choices. No dwarfs, no heart, no respect for the source. Add in a bloated budget and a lead who sounded bored, and Disney had cooked up the perfect flop. Some viewers were genuinely disappointed. Others saw it as a cautionary tale with a hint of karma.
If you're still here, you're exactly who this channel's for. Hit subscribe. We dive into the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear.
Then came the twist. Rumors swirled that Disney executives didn't see the backlash coming, that they never expected Zegler's comments to backfire. Hard to believe considering how fast things go viral today. But maybe this was a case of internal panic, last-minute changes, and too many voices trying to fix things too late. The final product landed with a thud. No hype, no buzz, just a meme-worthy mess.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars, they keep going back and rewriting the classics.
Is there a silver lining? Maybe. At the very least, this disaster might force Disney to rethink how they handle reboots. If your strategy involves cutting out beloved characters and casting someone who clearly isn't invested, it's time to hit pause. Even the biggest studios can't rely on brand name alone if the final product feels soulless. And for actors, it's a simple rule. If you're stepping into an iconic role, at least show some respect for what made it iconic in the first place. Fans don't expect blind loyalty, but calling the story outdated while cashing the check, that's a fast track to internet infamy. Between the weak box office, a star who unintentionally told fans to skip it, and choices that erased the charm of the original, Snow White 2025 turned into a cautionary tale. So what do you think? Was it Zegler's interviews that tanked this movie, or was removing the dwarfs the deal breaker? Could Disney have saved this if they stayed closer to the 1937 version? Or did you actually enjoy this bold new take? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're into deep dives on Hollywood wins and wipeouts, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next meltdown. Because if Snow White taught us anything, it's that not every fairy tale gets a happy ending.